Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be taking you on quadratic equations using formula method. Without wasting much time, let's get started. Let's consider this particular example. If you have x squared plus x minus 30 equals to 0. This is a quadratic equation and we are going to be using formula method to solve it. Okay, so the general quadratic equation is given by ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. You must always compare the equation that you want to solve with this general quadratic equation. So going with that comparison, we have our a equals to 1 because the coefficient of x squared here is 1. We have the coefficient of x squared here to be 1, so your a is equals to 1. Then your b equals to the coefficient of x. Now the coefficient of x in this particular equation is 1. You have your x to be 1, the coefficient of x to be 1, so your b equals to 1. Then your c equals to the constant. The constant here is negative 30, so your c equals to negative 30. Then you now go straight to your formula. The quadratic formula is given by x equals to minus b plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is the formula that we are going to be using to solve this quadratic equation. So you have your a to be 1, your b to be 1, then your c equals to negative 30. So what we are going to do next is to substitute the values of these variables. So wherever we have a, we substitute 1 into it, and whenever we have b, we substitute 1 again, and wherever we have c, we have negative 30. So let's continue here. Equals to negative 1 plus or minus square root of 1 squared. 1 squared is the same thing as 1 times 1, and we have 1 minus 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times negative 30 is negative 120 divided by 2 times 1. 2 times 1 is 2. So you have your x equals to negative 1 plus or minus, we have square root of 1 minus negative 120. 1 minus negative 120 is equals to 121, because when you have two negative signs, they will change to positive signs. So you have 1 plus 120 and you have 121. So here is 121 divided by 2. So your x equals to negative 1 plus or minus square root of 121 is 11. So you have your 11 all over 2. So when you have something like this, your x will have two values. So this is how you go about it. Your x equals to negative 1. You take the first positive sign, you take this one, negative 1 plus, you have 11 all over 2, and your x equals to, you have negative 1 minus 11 all over 2. Here in this second one, you take this other sign. That's what you have here. So you take the positive and you take the negative. So your x equals to -1 plus 11 is 10. You have your 10 over 2, and -1 minus 11 is -12 over 2. Here you are adding two negative numbers. When you are adding two negative numbers, the result will be negative. So that's what happens here. Here you have your x equals to 10 over 2, and 10 over 2 is 5. So your x equals to 5, and here -12 over 2 is -6. So your x equals to 5 and -6. Alright, let's consider this other example. We have 10x squared minus 11x minus 6 equals to 0, and we have to do this using formula method. Our general quadratic equation, the standard quadratic equation, is x squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. And from here we have our a equals to 10, our b equals to -11, and our c equals to -6. The coefficient of x squared here is 10, and that is your a. The coefficient of x here is -11, and that is your b, and the c is -6. Alright, so that is it. Then you write your quadratic formula. You have your x equals to -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So the next thing is for us to substitute. Wherever you have your b, you insert these values, and wherever you have your a, you insert this 10, and wherever you have your c, you insert this -6, those values. So we have our x equals to, here we have -b, and our b is -11. So we have negative into -11, because the b itself is -11. So that's why we have the -11 here, and we have this negative sign here outside. So you have plus minus square root of, we have b squared, here we have -11, all in squared, minus, let's use brackets, 4 times a is 10 times c is -6 divided by 2a. 2 times a is 10. So let's continue. Here we have our x equals to, here we have double negative signs here, so the answer will be +11. When you have negative times negative, it will turn to positive. So we have +11 plus minus, so let's have our square root here. -11 squared is the same thing as saying 11 squared, because the negative will cancel with negative. So we have 11 squared is the same thing as saying 11 times 11, which is 121. Here we have 121. Then we have minus 4 times 10, that is 40. 40 times -6, that will give us -240, divided by 2 times 10, that is 20. And our x equals to 11 plus or minus, we have square root of 121 minus -240. The whole of these two negative signs will change to plus. So we have 121 plus 240, and the answer is 361. So we have 361 here all over 20. So we have our x equals to 11 plus or minus square root of 361 is 19. So we have 19 all over 20. So we take this plus first, so our x equals to 11 plus 19 all over 20, and our x also is 11 minus 19 all over 20. This is 11. Okay, so we have our x equals to 11 plus 19 is 30. So you have 30 all over 20, and here we have 11 minus 19, which is negative 8. We have negative 8 all over 20. So we can reduce this to its lowest term. Let's continue here. So therefore our x, the best value will be, this 0 can cancel this 0, so you have 3 over 2, and x equals to negative 8 over 20. So if we use 4 can cancel here 2, and 4 cancel here 5. So we have x equals to negative 2 all over 5. So the two values are x equals to 3 over 2 and x equals to negative 2 all over 5. Alright, let's take this particular example. If you have x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals to 0, and we have to solve this using formula method. So the first thing is to compare it with the standard quadratic equation, which is given by ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Here, if you compare these two equations, you will discover that the coefficient of x squared here is 1, and the coefficient of x here is 5, and here you have the constant that is 6. So if you compare these two equations, you have that your a equals to 1, because the a here is the coefficient of x squared. Then here your b is the coefficient of x, and the b equals to 5. Then you have your c, which is the constant, that is equals to 6. Now, after this being done, the general formula for solving any quadratic equation is given: x equals to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So our corresponding values for these variables are a equals to 1, b equals to 5, and c equals to 6. So the next step is to substitute for each of the variables. We substitute the corresponding values of each of the variables. So we have our x equals to, we have negative b, and here our b is 5. So you have negative 5 plus or minus square root of b squared is 5 squared minus bracket open 4 times a is 1 times c is 6. So bracket closes all over 2 times a is 2 times 1. So our x equals to, we have negative 5 plus or minus, we have square root of 5 squared is 25 minus 4 times 1 is 4 times 6, we have 24, bracket closes, all over 2. So we go ahead, we have our x equals to -5 plus or minus square root of, so you have 25 minus 24, so you have 1 all over 2. We have our x equals to, we have -5 plus or minus square root of 1 is 1 all over 2. So we have our x. Let's take this positive sign first. X equals to -5 plus 1 divided by 2, and let's take this 1 under. We have our x equals to -5 minus 1 all over 2. So our x for the first one here, we have -5 plus 1, that is -4 all over 2, which equals to -2. And let's consider this one. Our x for the second one equals to -5 minus 1, that is -6 all over 2, which equals to -6 over 2 equals to -3. So the two values of our x are, we have -2 and -3.